Nigeria's digital economy is expanding rapidly, driven by fintech growth, startup innovation, and rise in internet penetration. But with cyber threats, infrastructural gaps, and regulatory uncertainty, skills shortages still pose major risk. And the big question remains, how can Nigeria future-proof its digital ecosystem for sustainable, inclusive growth? We're joined now by Ola Atose, who is CEO of CoinCoin, to discuss the policies, investments, and innovations needed to secure Nigeria's digital future. Ola, good morning to you. Many thanks for joining us on the Global Business Report.
Good morning, and thanks for having me.
You're most welcome. Well, let's begin with the concept of future-proofing Nigeria's digital economy. When we speak of this, what exactly does it mean in practicality?
So future-proofing is a way for us to find a way to make digital assets, their availability to all Nigerians in a safe ecosystem on the necessary frameworks, which we hope the regulators will provide for us.
Okay, that's a good way of starting. But how central are virtual assets and blockchain-based finance to that vision?
So blockchain-based finance and digital assets, as we now know them, have taken over the ecosystem of traditional finance as we know it. As of last year, we've seen a growth to 92.1 billion in Nigeria alone for all digital assets. This is a 56.1% year-on-year growth from the previous year, where we saw 59 billion. The reality is all this money is being moved through what we can call crypto rails in Nigeria, but are Nigerians benefiting from it? One, are the regulators, do they have proper oversight of what's going on? Number two. So these are questions we need to answer if we will ground ourselves in this space to ensure Nigerians benefit from it.
All right. Now, speaking of regulators, we do know that they are paying closer attention to virtual assets, for instance. What's driving this urgency right now?
Well, the money.
Okay.
You know, the reality is that this amount of money going through a single sector, the digital asset sector, there is need for oversight. The appropriate oversight. This feeds into the renewed hope agenda of the president, seeking to build $1 trillion economy. And in all fairness, if we get this right, this is the quickest way to do it.
All right. What would you consider the biggest vulnerabilities within Nigeria's digital ecosystem currently?
Well, for the time being, it would seem that the foreign players are the ones who are really getting the best of this, right? Our lunch is being eaten. We Nigerians have the skill, we have the knowledge, the know-how, and it's my personal belief that we can do it ourselves. We just need to all band together and see it done. So the real risk at the moment is, where is Nigeria benefiting from all this money? Where is Nigeria benefiting from this particular sector? And the answer to that question is we're neither here nor there, and we need that to change.
But, when you speak of that, our lunch being eaten is a sad reality, but it doesn't change the fact that that's the reality. Infrastructure, for instance, as we know, is really key, and we can't undermine the importance of broadband access, for instance, and stable power supply, amongst many other vulnerabilities. That is, how are these limitations being managed? So
these are fair points. We do need a stable infrastructure to ensure that platforms such as ours and availability to users is 24/7 without interruption, and a lot of that is already met through triple rails, dual rails, cloud-based systems that we use to host our platforms. But beyond that, we have to go to the crux of the matter, right? If we are to take this on ourselves, how do we do it? How are we regulated? What is the foundation for said regulation? How are the market operators like ourselves? How are we supervised, and how does that lead to structured innovation going into the future? I believe we're at a place where we can now answer those questions, and I believe that right now the government is working very hard. And from my view, I think we're now in a position where we're seeing more harmonization between the varying agencies. They're all coming together, and I, for one, I'm very excited. I think the time is now.
All right. I mean, pivoting to actions now, you just touched on the federal government working. Let's talk more about the draft framework on future-proofing Nigeria's digital economy. What should the top priorities in that document be?
So structured innovation, I would say. Structured innovation can be driven by the necessary foundation in understanding what's going on. right? So the first step will be to have a structured foundation of, what digital assets actually are. We know what they are. What are the activities? How can they be managed? How can they be supervised? Should be the next bit. And then beyond that, how do we structure the innovation and continued growth? Who are the participants? What do we need? What support do we need? What support can we bring to this space? And how do we bring every single Nigerian into the space? And how can we ensure that this lofty sector, $100 billion sector, how do we ensure every Nigerian benefits from that? If we think that way, we'll get it done.
In light of what we see with this framework, do you think that these questions are being answered thoroughly?
Yes, I know they're being answered. I'm extremely confident in, the works that are going on behind the scenes right now. I know they're being answered in line with, what we're trying to do. Of course, international credibility will go up. Nigeria recently came off the FATF grey list. This will ensure we remain off that list permanently. And it takes into consideration the Genius Act, of course, out of the States. Nigeria is now ready. We're at the table. And over the next few years, I see us leading the space for Africa.
All right, that's refreshing to hear. And would you say that the regulatory environment is also keeping pace with how fast virtual assets market is evolving as well?
Well, of course, the regulators are sometimes perceived as being one step behind, but that's changed rapidly over the last, in my opinion, from what I've seen over the last few years. There's been a lot of work done initially, by establishing upgrades to the ISA and the NTA of 2025, both those laws. So that's an initial first step that's been taken, and that's something we're grateful for. But where we now are is we're building upon that, and that's, reason for us to be excited.
Oh, that's great to hear. Well, now let's juxtapose the government's role against the private sectors. What do you see here relationally in terms of building digital resilience?
So there's a need for collaboration. Those of us on the private side, with the knowledge we have, I myself am an ex, sell-side investment banker. I'm now in this space. We bring together the best of traditional finance and this new era of digital assets, along with the knowledge of the regulators who understand the need to have the necessary frameworks together within this ecosystem. I think we can handle it. I think we can ensure that great things are done and great things are achieved.
So that sounds like a very positive outlook, which I would imagine has been supported by movement and action. Behind the scenes. That's always good to hear. Now, there are talks in policy circles about a VARA white paper that has been quietly, making the rounds. Why is this significant?
Well, one of the things, and again, as you say, it's been making the rounds. A number of us have seen it, and it's something that excites us even more. One of the key points there is one of the issues we've had over the past few years is fragmentation of the relevant agencies. One of the things that VARA does, in line with some of the points I mentioned earlier, is it brings harmonization, the much needed harmonization between all the bodies, right? So by bodies, I mean SEC, CBN, NRS, the ONSA for our security, of course, and NFIU for the intelligence. And one of the things the paper seems to do is it's promoting, as I again mentioned earlier, a strong foundation, a need to understand how this space can be best supervised in terms of what supervisory model should be in place. But most importantly, beyond harmonization, obviously harmonization, the coming together of all these units and the ability for platforms such as ours to report once but share severally in real time. So one of the things that excites me about VARA is real-time visibility of the regulators into what we're trying to achieve, and protection for ourselves as operators, but also for every Nigerian who wants to participate safely in this space.
Now let's talk about those Nigerians that want to participate safely. If adopted or adapted locally, this is the VARA paper I'm speaking of, in what ways will it reshape and have a direct impact on these Nigerians? But I'm not talking about operators right now.
So as I mentioned earlier, a lot of work has been done. We can't overlook the work done by the ISA, the Investment Securities Act, which actually gives virtual assets, identifies virtual assets as being in this ecosystem. Same with the NTA, the Nigerian Tax Act, which also identifies them. So again, to mention, the Nigerians who are, dealing in this space, currently, without mentioning any names, the largest platform which offers Nigerians the ability to do this is a foreign platform, right? So in essence, it's all on foreign rails, and in line with our lunch being eaten. It doesn't serve us as a country, and it certainly doesn't serve, the Nigerians who rely on these regulators to ensure that, the appropriate regulations, taxation is in place. So it doesn't serve us. This, from what I can see, this VARA, approach covers that gap. And this is certainly something I think we should all be excited about. So whether it's from a taxation perspective to make sure Nigeria is getting its fair share out of all this, this helps the country at large. This is something that the president, again, is designated, from what I can tell, is designated the top dogs at the central bank and the NRS to oversee this. So, again, I'm excited about that. I think, we're finally seeing the recognition that this space requires, and it gives us a chance to see an opportunity of a greater future. And again, I think this will give Nigerians who want to get involved, who are sitting on the sidelines, an opportunity to get in. But the numbers of Nigerians who are apparently involved in crypto right now is a number which conservatively apparently sits at 33 million, because it's a young country with a whole load of young people. So a lot of people are involved, right? So we need to do things properly. We need to make sure things are aligned, in not just from a government perspective or from a private side perspective, but from all our perspectives. And I think the VARA report, picks on these points.
Right, very fairly put. We touched on regulatory environment earlier. Let's talk about some of the risks that should worry the regulators the most right now. Would you say that's capital flight, market volatility? Which would be the most concerning?
Both of those, okay. And you can even add some more. But again, the good news is under what's being proposed in this white paper, there will be real-time visibility. So these things will be better managed. We'll be able to learn once the sandbox process is put in place. We'll be able to learn more, right, about these risks that you've mentioned and how to mitigate them. And this is something which a lot of other jurisdictions are going through, or have been through, and they've been able to establish, these competent authorities, which of course include, as I mentioned earlier, all the necessary bodies, the CBN, SEC, NRS, NFIU, ONSA. They'll all be involved, and they'll work together under their separate mandates, but under one cohesive brand or authority, if you like, and I think this is key.
So the harmonization is where the harmonization really comes to play.
We've waited for this for a while, and we're happy that it's here.
Oh, it's very refreshing to hear that. Now let's talk more about startups and innovation. Mm-hmm. In what ways, still under the regulatory environment, can Nigeria, regulate virtual assets without stifling their growth?
Yeah, so one of the points, that we have to mention is for local players, like ourselves. Yes, we have ideas. Yes, we have, we're innovating as we go. The support we need is recognition. So that comes through recognition from the regulator of who we are and what we're trying to do. And again, the VARA process has an identity program which will, give the Nigerian innovator, the Nigerian entrepreneur an opportunity to be involved in this space and not just sort of the foreign players, so to speak. And it will give us an opportunity to build the infrastructure, the financial infrastructure for digital assets, which is now a main infrastructure for Nigeria, given our trajectory towards $1 trillion economy. And in addition to that, as entrepreneurs or innovators ourselves, we believe in the market space where what we do is, directed by what the users want, right? And we know there are users out there that want what's on offer, and we intend to do our best to provide that. So part of the support we expect to see from the regulators is with regards to payment tokens, for example, which is quite big in Nigeria. We know that the central bank is taking a special look at that, and ideally as payment tokens, cross-border remittance, that does typically fall under central banks. We expect that. But in issues whereby these same payment tokens are used as securities, we also expect SEC to continue to do its good work. So,
all right. So it certainly sounds like there's quite a lot to look forward to there. Mm-hmm. All right. If you joined us midway, I've been chatting about the policies, investments and innovations needed to secure Nigeria's digital future with Ola Atose, who is the CEO of CoinCoin. Ola, I want to thank you so much for joining us on the Global Business Report. We'll see you again very soon. You're most welcome.